Dragon's Dogma is an open-world action RPG that was released way back in 2012, but after 11 years of consistently telling myself that I'm finally gonna give this title a chance, I always find myself back in either Lordran or Tamriel. Since the trailer for Dragon's Dogma 2 has been announced, I figured that if I don't play this game now, it'll probably stay in my backlog forever. So in this video, I've condensed more than 20 hours of my journey through the land of Gransys to see if this game is actually worth it today for a completely new player. We'll be battling Cyclops, casting spells, getting our face burned by a tentacle, and all of that to defeat a wicked dragon. This is Dragon's Dogma. Let us begin. So, loading up the game, the tutorial starts us right into the thick of the story. We're playing as Savan at the end of our journey to finally defeat the dragon. Since this is the tutorial, I think they're giving us a taste of what a high-level character should feel like, and we've also got a companion named Salde who guides us through this part of the game. He tells us to utilize our lantern for a light source, so I did that, and then I took the opportunity to try out the controls for the first time ever. X and Y on the controller lets us do a light and heavy attack. Holding either left or right trigger allows us to use weapon skills. The movement was smooth, the attack animations were pretty solid, and these swings feel heavy. The graphics aren't too bad either. It's actually a lot better than I expected for an old title, and I really like the atmosphere of the game so far. I'm very into it. Pushing forward as we walk out into the clearing, there's the freaking dragon from the title. Well, I didn't expect to see you this early into the game. He kind of shoots a fireball at us and we tried to run, but not before we were ambushed by some goblins, where I noticed something that I immediately thought was pretty cool. While fighting the goblins, my companion was actually holding them down for me, allowing me to attack them pretty easily. So, goblin, dead. We then jump down into the cave below, which allows us to escape the dragon's fire, and here we encounter what is called a rift stone, which allows us to summon 2 more companions, which now I realize are called pawns in this game. We continue to move forward with a full party, and we fought up some goblins, messed around with our mage, and my pawns tried to kill themselves, which immediately made me feel like I'm playing a D&D session with the boys.
A fall here means certain death.
Past the hallway in one of the cells, we were able to rescue a knight called Sir Ashroar, who tells us a little bit about what's happening, and apparently the Duke's army tried to fight the dragon by using sheer numbers, meaning he gathered as much men as he can to try and fight the beast, and that went as well as you might expect. Also, according to him, only we, the Arisen, have the chance to turn the tides. After bringing down some harpies in the next area, we met some of the knights who survived, and Sir Palati guided us towards the location of the dragon. But before we made it to its roost, we were ambushed by a chimera. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing at this point, so I accidentally grabbed onto the lion's head, which made me realize I can climb the monster with the right bumper, but not before I fell asleep from the magic of the goat's head. I then tried to attack from the ground, but using the weapon skills drained my stamina, and as you can see, I'm out of breath. An inspiring sight for my companions. After a while of trying a bunch of things out, they kept telling me to aim for the head, so I tried to climb the chimera from the back and hacked at the snake's neck. On my second attempt, I was able to actually cut through it, stopping the chimera's poison attacks, and at this point, it was game over for the beast. A well-placed arrow brought down the goat's head, which cancelled out its attack magics, allowing me to climb straight on the lion's head and slash its face left and right. The door to the dragon's roost started opening, and the tutorial was finally finished. So far, so good. I really like the combat and the pawns not only being there for extra damage, but actually giving you hints and speaking their minds makes me feel like I'm playing an actual living dungeon party. Many lifetimes later, according to the narrator, the dragon is back, and a new Arisen starts their journey to try and end it once and for all. And now, we finally get to create our character. The character creation is surprisingly versatile for such an old game. You can customize pretty much all major aspects of the player, and browsing through the presets gives us a quick look at what's possible, from dwarves to giants to guts from Berserk. I actually tried to roll with guts at first, but on the first cutscene I couldn't get immersed, so I made a new one that's a little bit more similar to me for immersion purposes. Meet Kaganath, a local fisherman in the village of Cassardis. He's about 6'6", definitely close to my height IRL, likes long walks on the beach, and has a 12-inch thumb. Anyway, our peaceful life in the village is brought to an end when we hear somebody screaming, warning us that the dragon has come. It destroyed the docks, made the knights run away, and while everybody was either running, dying, or defecating their loincloths, only we had the courage to pick up the sword and battle the ancient beast. We squared up, it breathed fire, and we ate shit. Great start. but not before we were able to stick a sword into the dragon's hand, which caught his attention. It said some things in the dragon language that I couldn't understand before digging into my chest with its claws, literally taking out my heart before eating it. Bleeding on the beach, we were rescued by the girl from earlier, and then we passed out. After some time, we wake up in the village chief's house with a huge scar on our chest. The dragon's challenge echoes inside our head, and we are now able to pick a vocation, which is the class system in this game. At this point in the story, we only have 3 choices. The fighter, which is your basic knight option, the strider, which uses daggers and a bow, and of course an obligatory mage option as well. Later on, we'll be able to unlock the advanced vocations, but for now, since my playstyle is very unga bunga, I went with the fighter, and that gave us a rusted sword and shield as weapons. Eavesdropping on the conversation with the village chief and Kina, the girl from earlier, tells us that we may be alive but our heart doesn't beat. The chief thinks we're alive by some sort of curse, and at this point in time I didn't really fully understand what we were trying to do, but I think we're gonna try to reclaim our heart from the dragon. With this, we plunder the last of the resources in his house before heading outside the door to begin our journey. The thing with Dragon's Dogma is that the game in general is quite open-ended. You can follow the red circle on the minimap, of course, which continues the main quest, and you can keep doing that and focusing on just progressing. But I really like exploration in RPG games, so I did everything except for going to the red circle during my first half an hour, and that's what you're about to see. First, I spoke to everyone in the village, which was quite confusing when I realized everybody refers to me as their cousin. I then went to the docks and hopped on the boats where I found a decent amount of gold and some loot. After stealing from the second boat, I tried to hop back to the docks, but my character decided to go for a swim instead, where the brine, an unknown cluster of a monster lurking in the sea, attacked me. Roger, who was standing guard at the beach, told us that after we washed up on the shore, so I guess swimming isn't a part of this game. I then explored the rest of the beach, picked up some stones, killed some birds, and finally we got our first quest from Benita, one of my cousins. She's tending to the wounded after the dragon raised our village, and she's in need of a couple of flowers for medicine. She didn't really tell us where the flowers can be found, and there wasn't any quest marker, so I was lost until I found Geraldo, who gave us a tip when it comes to finding these flowers. One thing I really like about questing in Dragon's Dogma is that not everything is given to you right from the start of the quest. Sometimes you have to explore or talk to people to actually be able to figure out what you need to do in order to complete the quest. In this particular one, the flowers that we needed can be found on the root of bigger trees found outside the village, so after talking to the last NPC I can find, we head out of the village gate and into the wilds. But wait, when we approach the gate, an ominous portal opens up behind us and a weird looking mustache man called Rook came out and gave us a wave. Rook is our first pawn in this playthrough. Adaro, the village chief, gave us a little lore dump, but in summary, pawns are human-like beings that come from the rift. They look like humans, talk like humans, but there's something that's always off about them, and they don't do anything unless ordered. Adaro also told us that if we want to learn more about the pawns, we should go to the encampment where an army is gathering to try and fight off the dragon, and he mentioned that a huge amount of pawns were also there helping out. So again, to recap, take back our heart from the dragon and learn more about the pawns. That's what we're trying to do. After meeting Rook, we then left the village to move forward with our quest, mainly looking for sunbright flowers for Benita, and while we're doing that, we encountered a man ambushed by a group of goblins. His name is Reynard, and he'll be able to sell us items later on, but for now he thanked us and went on his way. I finally got the flowers Benita asked for while running around somewhere off the road, turned it in, and now she's asking for the last part of the medicine's ingredient, Moonglow. I then set out again to try and find these flowers, but I ended up reaching the encampment before finding any, and given the fact that it's named Moonglow and the other one was Sunbright, I thought maybe they'll only come out at night, so I decided to enter the encampment for now. In the encampment, we found a decent amount of loot and got our first cloak, which is a well-needed upgrade to my peasant rip. We also met Ekbal, who I guess handles the logistics in the camp, and he allowed us to basically access the storage and also upgrade and add new skills. I was only able to add one skill before running out of discipline points, but now we've got Broadcut, which cuts in a horizontal slash while also making us move back one step. We then spoke to the Rift Stone, yes, the stone itself, who gave us a trial to prove whether we are actually Arisen or not, and so we set out to look for monsters to kill to prove our mettle. It didn't take long because when we went out of the tent, the soldiers in the encampment were in a frenzy. Apparently something is attacking the gate, so we followed right behind them and exited the gate where we encountered our first Cyclops. This was a really cool fight. Rook enchanted my weapons with a fire boon, which is a mage skill, and I tried to slash at the Cyclops' legs, but it wasn't really doing anything. At some point I hopped onto one of its legs, which seemed to incapacitate it, and with my flaming sword I hacked on its torso, which dealt a lot of damage, especially with the burning. I kept doing that until I accidentally let go, which allowed the Cyclops to hit me with its arm with perfect timing, bringing my health from 275 down to 5. At this point I was getting kinda nervous. The soldiers went down, so the little goblins were now aggroing on me, and one little mistake could mean that I die right here. But then Rook came in clutch with the heals and brought my health back up to 181 and then to 383, which allowed me to climb up on the Cyclops once again and hack its butt. I was dodging the goblins whenever I needed to let my stamina recover, but after a while I was able to give it the final blow and we brought down the giant to its knees. We got this shot of a sussy old man looking over the events from a cliff. It'll be relevant later on, but for now, we were able to pass the Riftstone's trial, which gave us access to its full power. Not only are we able to add up to 2 more pawns in our party now, but we can also create our own personal one. Here's Adelia, our main pawn. She's a character I actually created years ago for a fantasy world that I'm building, but she's gonna be perfect for our playthrough because she is a mage, which complements my fighter playstyle. Now that we've proven ourselves as the Arisen, the whole Pawn Legion now swears fealty and bows to us, promising to live and die by our command. This scene was really cool, and I have no one to thank but Rook, our first pawn in this game, who guided us to the Riftstone and saved us from the Cyclops. I then threw him away because he looks like a crackhead.
Know your fucking place, trash!
And went looking for 2 new pawns to add into my party. Now, one of the best features of Dragon's Dogma, aside from being able to create your own pawn, is that you can actually hire the pawns created by other players. So knowing that, I spent an ungodly amount of time looking for the best looking pawns in the Rift, and after about an hour of resetting the Riftstone, I settled on 2 of them. The first one is Ellie, who is a mage with immense strength. She's level 4, so she's not OP at all, but my guess was that she's an NG plus pawn, which is why her equipment looks really good. The other pawn that we hired is Frogard, a Strider. I hired him because he looks like a discount Aragorn, and it looks like his creator put a decent amount of effort on him. And now the party is complete. 2 support mages, a Strider, and a fighter. That's me. When we left the tent, the creepy old man from earlier is still following us, and I'm starting to wonder what his deal is. We also got the option to rest in the encampment since it was nighttime, but I wanted to try to collect the moon globe Benita was asking for before sleeping, so we passed on the offer for now and I went out back into the wilds. I explored the whole area near Cassardis and we were able to acquire some moon glow near the shore, where we also fought a goblin camp in the night and saw our party in action for the first time. And if you're wondering how we did, we pretty much annihilated them. We then headed back to the village to turn in the quest, and this old man followed us back. In summary, he told us that no matter how many men we gather, we have no chance of defeating the dragon, which I think is what happened in the tutorial. He then left and we finally finished Benita's quest. At this point, we also started getting prompts to visit the docks at night, where we met Olra, who actually gives us access to the Dark Arisen DLC. Now, I'm not planning on doing the DLC this early because I heard that it gives you OP items that you wouldn't normally get in the base game, but I did try it out for a little bit, just to check. I mean, how difficult could it be, right? Needless to say, I got my ass kicked and the whole party almost wiped, so we're really not gonna be doing that for now. After getting back, I went to the encampment to rest and also to advance the story once more, but when we woke up that morning, we came face to face with a multi-headed Hydra who's here to absolutely ruin our day. There wasn't really any time to digest what was happening. We were thrown right into the fight, and thankfully we have a full party now, so I went for the tried and true method of climbing up the snake's head, but I kept falling off and running out of stamina. The snake also kept moving around, which made it difficult to grab onto. It even destroyed one of the towers, and it almost ate me if not for Ellie's fireball. Frogard and I were then able to climb on top of the snake's head together, and I took the opportunity to just hack it as much as I could, and that was the strat: rinse and repeat, periodically jumping down to recover my stamina. Finally, the snake started moving again while we were on its neck, and when it moved, it actually lowered the specific head that I was climbing on, which made it an easy target for the fireballs that the mages were throwing. And at the same time, I was using my sword that was enchanted with flame, so its head immediately caught fire, dealing big damage, which then allowed us to finally cut it off. Yay. Defeating the Hydra boosted our reputation with the army massively, and Mercedes, the officer in charge of the encampment, suggested that we present the Hydra's head to the Duke so I can get an official Wyrm Hunt title, which will allow me to officially join the army that's hunting the dragon. Now, if I remember correctly, it was also a Duke that built an army massacred by the dragon during the tutorial, so is this the same Duke, a new Duke from a different time? I don't really know yet, but it is a step closer towards getting back our heart. So at this point, the next part in the main story is to go deliver the Hydra head, but I wanted to finish up the rest of the side quests in this area first before doing that, so I'll give you a quick summary of what happened. First, we met up with Reynard, the guy we rescued from the goblins earlier. We were able to buy a couple of pieces of equipment from him and finally leveled up our drip game. We also received word that Kina was missing, so we went back to Cassardis to figure out what's going on, and while back in the village, we not only figured that Kina went off to what's called the Witchwood to find medicine for our missing heart, but we also helped a cousin deal with grief, helped the pastor look for missing scriptures, and we jumped in a well to clear it off of Saurians, lizard people that can turn into stones that pretty much die instantly once their tails get cut off. Adelia also received some much needed gear upgrade, and instead of looking like she's in pajamas, she now looks like a hobo. Now we set off for the Witchwood. The road was perilous, there were rolling boulders on the path, but even those were the least of our concerns. Bandits and wolves run amok on this side of Gransys, and after getting caught in the darkness, we had our first death when I got my back slashed while trying to pile on a downed enemy. But I just wouldn't give up. I was being stubborn and I kept going. We continued our journey to the Witchwood with only a lantern to light our way, only to be eaten by a pack of wolves. Alright, time to give up. I ran my ass back to the encampment to wait for morning, and with daylight on our side, we had a much easier time making our way through the forest. We had our revenge on the bandits, and we made it safely to the edge of the Witchwood, where we were able to catch up to Kina and ask this woman why she went to this part of the world all alone. Apparently there's a witch here who understands the dragon language, and Kina wants to ask her to heal our wounds, so we agreed to help and made our way through the mist of the forest. After getting lost and taking an embarrassing amount of time trying to navigate without the minimap, we finally made it to the witch's house, where we learned that the witch that we were looking for was long dead. Big Sag. Only her granddaughter Celine was left, and she didn't really know how to help us because her grandmother forbade her from learning about anything that the church might consider heretical. Which makes sense because in a lot of Japanese made games, churches are typically the final bad guy in the story. We leave defeated and escorted Kina back to the village. Finally, we walked back to the army encampment, escorting Madeline along the way, who needed a guard for her journey, but accidentally abandoned her in the middle of the road because I was distracted by a pack of goblins.
You would abandon me? Perhaps you swore to be my shield.
However, eventually we did make it all the way, and after reaching the encampment, we rested until the next day to once again start making progress on the main quest. So, morning comes and we finally leave and move past the encampment. We met up with Mercedes in the Mountain Way Castle, a checkpoint between southern Gransys and the capital Gran Soren. This is also the time when we finally split up with Frogard for a much needed pawn upgrade, so we said goodbye to him and hired a new and more appropriately leveled strider as Sahela. The road to Gran Soren was not only long, but it was filled with monsters attracted by the serpent's blood. We also had to go through the mountains on a snake-like road, so there were falling boulders all around us from the landslide. Harpies kept trying to hit us from above, and goblin packs lay in ambush on every dark corner. It took us a whole day, but by sunset, as our pack animal was literally walking on death's door with 1 health, we finally made it to the gates of Gran Soren with the Hydra's head fully intact. Mercedes went to report to the Duke, and she told us to rest a bit in the capital and go do our own thing while we wait for her to finish up. In the meantime, a man named Mason told us that we should learn more about our pawns by going to the Pawn Guild, the headquarters of the Pawn Legion in Gransys. Before we did that though, I had a whole city to explore, and me being me, I did just that. Gran Soren is a really cool looking medieval city. Unlike Cassardis, the fishing village that we came from, this place was like a maze of stone walls and tall buildings with hidden passageways connecting the main areas. We got some loot from the rooftops and stole some from the inn and the vendors as well, but we also found a barber shop where we can actually customize both our characters and main pawn if we wanted to make a few minor changes. I gave Adelia an experimental makeover because she was looking kinda mid, and then we talked to the innkeeper because I was planning to level up some skills. In the capital, the innkeeper takes the role of Ekbal from the Encampment, but what caught my interest is that this innkeeper actually allowed us to not only change vocations, but the advanced vocations that I talked about very early in the video are now available for us to acquire. Aside from Fighter, Strider, and Mage, there's now Mystic Knight, Ranger, Magic Archer, Assassin, and Sorcerer, which are specialized versions of the previous vocations. I was debating for a while, but after some time reading through what others recommended, apparently you can change vocations at any time, and it's encouraged so you can have a balanced stat build in the endgame. In the end, I decided to not think about it too much and went for the obvious upgrade to my fighter, a Mystic Knight. Mystic Knights are basically a sword and shield magic wielder, and they get to use a bigger shield as compared to the fighter. So later on, you'll see me casting a few spells here and there while still retaining my melee skills. Oh, and we also upgraded Adalaya from Mage to Sorcerer, which is an AoE damage specialist. Lastly, we bought some much needed gear upgrades, and with a new and even stronger drip game, we head to the Pawn Guild to kill some time before Mercedes comes back. In the Pawn Guild, we met Barnaby, a pawn who basically handles the affairs of the guild. Barnaby tells us of the Everfall, a place securely guarded by the pawns for reasons that we don't yet know. But since the dragon's arrival, he said that there's a strange presence in the Everfall, and he fears that it's an omen of evil that's soon to come. Given that it's a place of great importance to our pawns, we decided to agree and check things out for them. We also again upgraded our pawn and said goodbye to Asahela in exchange for a fighter named Victor, who has a cool looking Viking helmet. Ellie's still here though, she's got the best trip in the game so far, so I'm a little bit attached. And so, we descended into the Everfall. And this place was kinda scary. It's a huge spiral staircase with a glowing light at the bottom, and the pawn said that they felt a calling from the depths, but even they didn't really understand it.
I feel old calling from the depths.
The enemies here were also a lot stronger than anything we've previously encountered. First there was the undead, so physical attacks didn't really do much damage to them, but enchanted fire weapons or fire magic did great in bringing them down. There were also skeletons in the deeper parts of the Everfall, including in the side paths where we were forced to go because some of the gates on the staircase were blocked and needed to be unlocked from the other side. So we fought our way through the darkness for a while, pushing ever forward and slowly descending into the depths, but eventually we encountered the strongest roadblock that I found in the game up to this point, an ogre. Ogres are a lot stronger than Cyclops. Not only do they have a massive health pool to the point where I don't think my attacks were really doing damage, but they hit like an absolute truck and pretty much had the potential to one-shot everyone in my party. It also wasn't climbable because it can actually reach any part of its body and throw us away, dealing more damage to us than we do to it. And if we climb from the back, it jumps and crushes us while we're attached to it. Also, I'm not sure about this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it also regenerates its health, and we're doing too little damage to outperform its healing. We tried our best to fight it for a while and deal as much damage as possible, but literally nothing was working against this guy. It was also specifically targeting the woman in our party, which apparently gets it excited, so our mages were always down. Eventually I figured that it had a charge attack that it would use, and maybe, just maybe, I could bait the charge attack, dodge, and get it to fall off the edge. So I tried doing that and positioned myself in the party at the edge of the staircase, which in hindsight was a really bad decision. The ogre did this spinning kick attack that launched every single one of us off the edge. Victor and Ellie fell down, and I think Victor even broke his legs or something because he was out of commission at this point. Adalaya and I were dangling on the pillar, and she was out of it too until I helped her get back up. The sad thing is that Adalaya couldn't parkour since she's an NPC, but for immersion purposes, I'll say it's because she's unathletic. So I was the only one able to get back up on the staircase by jumping and pulling myself up. The ogre seemed stunned or glitched out, so I attacked it as much as I can, but again I wasn't doing any damage, so I gave up on that and decided to help my pawns instead by sprinting down the staircases, ignoring every enemy along the way with the sole purpose of getting my party back on their feet. Finally, we reached the bottom, helped Victor up, and when one of our party members shouted that the ogre might be back, I panicked and touched the glowing light. Another terrible decision, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Tentacles that seemed like it came out of Lovecraft's universe emerged from the ground and all around us. We tried to fight as much as we could, but every time we killed one of the tentacles, it just grew back and spawned more. My party members kept getting down, and at this point I realized we really couldn't do anything and just had to run. So I picked up Victor, who was on the floor once again, and then I ate a fireball to the face, ending me right then and there. At this point, I was thinking that since I wasn't able to do any significant amount of damage to both the ogre and the tentacles, that I might need to level up first and upgrade some of my gear. So you know what that means. it's side questing time again. To go through this real quick, here's what happened in the next 2 hours of my adventure. After finding a shortcut and killing a Cyclops on the way back to the encampment, we finally made it to the local thieves' den to re-steal a grimoire for a guy named Stefan. We then went back to the Witchwood at night, which was a terrible idea, but we did it anyway in order to get Celine the Witch to brew some alcohol for the owner of the alehouse in Gran Soren. We also went back to Cassardis to give our old friends a visit and caught a thief stealing from the grocery store and the apothecary. We then journeyed all the way to the capital once more, and now we're back. Weapons have been enhanced with the money we made from the quest, and we also hired 2 new and stronger pawns, Raven and Harkel. Unfortunately, I couldn't justify keeping Ellie anymore at this point, but now, at least we're ready. We slowly descended the spiral staircase once more, and then I accidentally jumped to my death. Ignore that. We faced the ogre once more, and now with stronger equipment and a more powerful team, we were able to put up a much stronger fight against the beast. That doesn't mean it was easy. My pawns were still getting down, but eventually the ogre charged at us and missed everyone, causing it to fall to its death down the staircase. My original plan ended up working without me intending to do it. Thanks, Dragon's Dogma. Upon reaching the bottom, we once again touched the mysterious light for round 2 with Cthulhu. Now, I only realized this on a second retry, but the quest was actually completed as soon as the tentacles were summoned and I could report to Barnaby. I literally could have completed this quest 2 hours ago if I just didn't get a fireball to the face, but no matter, we got out of there and I ran as fast as I could back up and out of the Everfall. Upon leaving, we reported our findings to Barnaby and completed the Everfall quest. Hooray! At this point, one of the soldiers brought us a personal message from the Duke himself, the guy that's trying to build an army against the dragon. He told us that the Duke was impressed with our killing of the Hydra and has given us official permission to join the Wyrm Hunt. The Wyrm Hunt basically gives us direct access to missions that are related to the defense and battle against the dragon who ate our heart, if you remember that from hours ago. We're supposed to show our license to Sir Maximilian and he'll give us the missions we need to complete. So I was very eager to actually start doing these Wyrm Hunt quests, but I learned from the last mission that if I didn't prepare, this game will absolutely kick my ass, so I wanted to upgrade my gear first. On the way, we also revived a blacksmith's dead son using the wakestone we found from the Everfall, got a family to move out for a rich man called Fornival who gave us 40,000 in gold, and we tailed a sussy knight and discovered a scheme going on with Madeline. I don't really know what this is about yet, but it's probably going to be relevant later on. We also babysitted Fornival's daughter and toured her around the city, which was my least favorite quest in the whole game, but Fornival pays a lot, so I got it done. After all of that and a little upgrade to our skills, we met with Sir Maximilian Eisenstern, appointed captain of the hunt by the Duke Edmund Dragonsbane. He gave us a quick rundown of missions that needed to be accomplished, and we have the freedom to choose the order with which to finish them. For the Wyrm Hunt, we can either work on deciphering a text, investigating a cult, aiding a research team, or routing a monster infestation. Seeing as I picked Fighter as an early game location, you already know that I'm looking to throw hands with whatever monster I can get my hands on, so we picked the Monster Infestation quest. Apparently, the Stone of the Southwest, a fortress called Shadow Fort, had been taken over by goblins while it was under repair. This was a very strategic location in terms of defending the south against the dragon, so we had to take it back under any circumstances. As you can see, the Wyrm Hunt quests are a step above everything in terms of importance, so I think this is what the mid-game is going to be all about. Going through this Wyrm Hunt quest, leveling up, and making sure that we are as prepared as possible before taking on the dragon itself. And so, we begin our long journey to the Shadow Fort. But where was the Shadow Fort? Well, the furthest that we've explored in the game is the Thieves' Den from the Grimoire side quest, and in order to get there, we had to go to the encampment, head about northwest, and past the Witchwoods. For reference, the Shadow Fort is about that far from the Thieves' Den. Oh boy. Getting to the Shadow Fort itself took me a total of about 2 real-life hours. I did get sidetracked by a cave I found behind a waterfall, which ended up being a dead end because this was a quest location for another Wyrm Hunt quest, and I also did get lost because it was nighttime when I got out and I thought there would be a more straightforward way, but ended up stuck in a goblin camp with another dead end instead. So I had to journey in the dark, barely being able to see what's ahead of me, back to the encampment, which luckily has been a very convenient location whenever I had to go to this part of Gransys. In the morning, since there was a riftstone here, I took took the opportunity to grab 2 new pawns, Sammy and Tyrone, who has the coolest looking armor I've seen in the whole game so far, and we continued our quest to the direction of the Thieves' Den. We had to deal with the rolling boulder again, which I think spawns from time to time, and had to fight bandits, saurians, and we encountered our first wild chimera because I was traveling away from the road to avoid the bandits. Since we've already fought it in the beginning of the game, it didn't prove to be too difficult and we slashed all of its heads pretty easily. The ogre was a lot harder. Since I decided to not follow the road this time to avoid the Thieves' Den, and also because I wanted to save some time by not fighting a horde of bandits along the way, we took this narrow mountain path that, again, I thought would be a shortcut. Saving time didn't really matter in the end because I think the road we took was a lot more dangerous. We ended up running through this narrow mountain side path with multiple rolling boulders, which was a massive pain in the ass, and it also did a number on Sammy, who I had to come down to and pick up so she wouldn't actually die. After getting out of that, we had to fight a huge pack of goblins and hobgoblins alongside a cyclops, but thankfully, the cyclops decided to unalive itself by jumping off the cliff. Guess he was going through some things. Finally, after all of that, we made it to a checkpoint, a rest camp that was assigned here by the capital to aid us in our journey of taking back the fortress. Here, we were able to not just rest, but also buy some new gear, items, and level up our skills. I swapped my old sword for a mace, which deals a lot more damage in exchange for a slower swing, but since I'm a Mystic Knight, that should be alright. We also upgraded Adelia's skills, making her just a little bit stronger, and we explored a nearby cave just before nightfall because my curiosity got the best of me. After sleeping in the rest camp, we continued our journey to the fortress, which was actually really close at this point. We just had to fight some hobgoblin packs, rescued a random woman named Ferris, and then we finally set our eyes upon the gates of the Shadow Fort. Here's the situation. Apparently, while the fort was being repaired, goblins dug their way from the underground and pushed the soldiers out. They then locked the big gate, and now our soldiers can't get inside to fight the goblins. The mission was to get into the fort through one of the goblin holes, open the gate from the inside so the army can enter, and try to reclaim it. Piece of cake. We went down the hole, made our way inside of what looks to be a storage house, and defeated all the goblins within. We then finally made it out to see the situation, and immediately we were being bombarded by large flaming arrows being shot from the fort's defense mechanisms. We also couldn't open the gate because the lever was missing, so we had to look for that. After taking down some goblins from each side of the gate, we tried to shoot at the crossbows from the keep by using the ones that are placed on the gate. This plan didn't really work since I couldn't see them very well, so I then tried to shoot at the armored cyclops on the ground, but that didn't really work either because I was eating crossbow shots while stationary. After running around trying not to die, I made it to a place with a destroyed roof which was called the station room. Here we found a port crystal which will allow us to set a teleporter to any area for fast travel through an item called the fairy stone, and we also found the Shadow Fort lever. Immediately I ran back to the gate, attached the lever, and let the Duke's army in. We joined the battle ensuing below and focused on taking down the 2 armored cyclops. These guys were surprisingly tough. My weapons weren't doing really well against them because of the armor, so we had to remove them one by destroying each piece. The thing about Cyclops is that their weakness is their eye, which I tried to aim for a lot. And I think they're also weak to lightning, which Adelia was casting a lot, so that was a massive help. My goal in this fight was basically to climb up and focus on getting their helmet off of them so I can hit them in the eye, and after a long and grueling battle, we finally took down both Cyclops, and the Goblin army retreated to the keep where the chieftain was also hiding. The goblins inside didn't prove to be much of a problem, but the way to the chief was blocked, so we had to go the long way around. We took down another Cyclops at the top and immobilized the crossbows, which were annoying me up to this point, and finally we made it to the commander's antechamber where the goblin chief was hiding. I pinned the goblin chief with my arms while Adelia struck it with powerful lightning, and the goblin chief was defeated in an anticlimactic battle. It was able to escape, however, and warned us that the end is nigh and the dragon comes before jumping out of the window and running away in a hole somewhere, and finally the Shadow Fort is liberated.
Beasts are bled and the whole retaken! Victory is ours!
Victory! Victory is ours!
We took out the remaining goblin forces hiding in the hole below the Shadow Fort, which actually contained a lot of loot, and there was also this huge underground area below that we couldn't access yet, but I think we'll be coming back to this later on in the story. After that, we left the Shadow Fort to journey back to Gran Soren and report our deeds to the captain of the hunt. I wanted to make it back to the rest camp first because it was already very late at night by the time we reclaimed the fortress. But I'm not gonna lie, I felt so strong at this point in the game that I didn't really care about journeying at night. Nothing could beat me now. Except while fighting a pack of goblins, I heard wings flapping from somewhere in the sky. Oh no. It wasn't a dragon that took our heart, but it was a dragon nonetheless. Seeing as it was pretty small, I tried to give it an honest shot. Immediately, it went for our mage Sammy, taking out our healing. Then it hit me with a fire breath attack that took a massive amount off of my health pool. It then took a dive and decided to fight us on the ground. I thought this was the perfect opportunity, grab onto it and try to slash its wings, but well, it grabbed me instead. I tried really hard to get on top of the dragon, but it was able to hit me with its massive tail and I ended up dying in one hit. We were only able to do maybe 1% of damage after all that effort, so we won't be messing with that thing anytime soon. After respawning, I made a mad dash back to the rest camp, ignoring the flapping wings behind me, and since I knew that morning was about to arrive, I decided to go to the cave that I explored earlier. Remember this cave? Yeah, while getting sidetracked, I actually fought about 3 ogres here, and not only that, but I realized that this was some sort of shortcut that would lead us back to somewhere near Gran Soren. We pushed forward, opened some gates, fought some undead, and made it to the other side, which was a mining location for ore. There were some bandits here and there, but we took them down eventually, and finally, we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Upon exiting, I checked the map and we are now in the ancient quarry just west of Gran Soren. We talked to Alon, who was a merchant who gave us a quest to open the gates inside the quarry to free up the shortcut, which we already did, so the quest was instantly completed. At this point, I realized I think this is where we were supposed to go when we got the Shadow Fort quest, so we actually took the very long way around and wasted a lot of time. A big oopsie, if you will. We walked back to Gran Soren, up the stairs, and finally turned in the quest to Sir Maximilian, who congratulated us for taking back the fort and ensuring that the south of Gransys is shielded once more. The next few quests that we're going to be doing are all worm hunt quests, so for now, this is where our journey ends. My first impressions about Dragon's Dogma are as follows. The game is old. It has a lot of remnants of old game design, like the saving mechanics not being very good. There's a lot of empty spaces in the land, and the side quests aren't made to be very engaging. But the combat and the overall atmosphere of this game is 100% right up my alley. I could play this game all day, and if I didn't have to make this video, I probably would have. The climbing mechanic is also very innovative for its time, and the monsters are actually difficult, requiring you to prepare for their weaknesses beforehand by utilizing specific magic types, upgrading weapons, or bringing well-suited punts to the battle. The perfect comparison for this game would be if Dark Souls and Dragon Age had a baby. I think it'd be Dragon's Dogma for sure. Thank you for getting this far into the video. I just wanted to thank our first patron for supporting the channel, and if you'd like to do the same, please feel free to go to the link in the description. It's not needed, but it does help me in trying to turn YouTube into something that I might be able to focus on more in the future. If you want to see the continuation of Kaganath and Adeli's journey in Gransys, please let me know in the comments down below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and if you want to see some more interesting games, you might want to check out Arisen in this video right here. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!